was just anxious to get back here. You know, this is a very welcoming congregation. That's been my experience. I have not even been here officially yet 1 year. This coming week, July the 1st, is 1 year, and from the moment I arrived, you have been nothing but welcoming to me. And so I know what it feels like to be welcomed into a place where you are made to feel at home. And you all have done that, so thank you. The same is true when we went to Appalachia Service Project this week. My team, I wasn't with the other teams. I'm sure that they could speak to that, and we're going to talk about ASP in a couple of weeks, so I'm not taking any of that thunder. I don't want to focus the whole thing on that, but there's something apparently about the name Walter. Because one of the people who makes me feel welcome here every Sunday that he's here is sitting right over here, and it's Walter. But our homeowner on the team that I was on was named Walter. And Walter, every time we went into the house to tell him we were here to do some work, and eventually the team decided I should not be the one to go in and talk to him, because an hour and a half later, I would come back out to help everyone. Apparently, I talked for a long time and listened some for a long period of time. So anytime I launched into a conversation, all right, James, wrap it up. Okay, we're going back out to work. We sent in our team, and Walter made sure we felt welcome and loved and seen. Walter, so I just have a special place in my heart now for all the Walters I know in the world, not that I didn't before. Feeling welcome at a person's house, feeling welcome in a place of worship, no matter who you are, where you come from, no matter how you see the world, I think that's our call. And if we can't do that welcoming thing, we just need to stop calling ourselves the church. We need to call ourselves something else. There are plenty of exclusive groups out in the world. We don't need to be one of them. Everybody welcome at God's table, everyone invited. And this text today is all about making people feel welcome. And what Jesus does for us in this text is tell us that anyone who first of all, let's just start at the ground. Every one of you was welcomed into this world. In fact, it used to be the way we would describe someone who had a child born. You know, Linda and James welcome Hannah Grace into the world. I have done weddings where families have said, you know, Hannah Grace and Linda and James and Josh welcome John Hall into their family, because that welcoming invitation, that letting you know that there is a space for you and that there's a space for everyone matters. And, you know, one of the ways we speak, okay, one last thing about ASP. One of the ways they speak about it is it's a relationship ministry with construction on the side, although there's a lot of constructions. Like 7-8 hours a day of putting materials together, digging holes, gently removing as opposed to demolishing things that are in the way, so that you can do good work. But it is a ministry of building relationships. And the truth is, when we come and hang out here on Sunday mornings, and then when we do Ministry of Hope, or Rebuilding Together, or when you do a study together, or when we worship together, or when you sing in the choir together, or when you do a Bible study, any of those things, we are creating a space where all people ought to feel welcome. There ought to be, it ought to be clear when you walk in the door, that back door, that we don't know your name yet, but you belong here. There is a space for you because whether we know you yet or not, God already does. And God wants you to know this is a place for you. And, you know, I think you should be willing to call us out. If you ever come and visit us on a Sunday morning and you don't feel like this is a welcome space for you, you ought to just be unafraid to walk up to me. Most of you are not afraid to walk up to me. James, did you read the Bible this week before you preached, or was that just kind of a suggestion? No one said that to me, by the way, since I came. Maybe that's why I feel welcome, among others. This is a place where you ought to know God loves you. Before you came in here, without changing a thing about yourself, it's not a destination to get to God's love. It's an already is. You know, you are already loved. And so is everyone who walks through that door, no matter how broken or lost or alienated or alone they feel, no matter where they fit into the bigger picture of, they may have been told by lots of other people that there's no place for them. But here, there's always a place. In God's kingdom, there is always a place for all of us, just as we are. Will love transform us? I absolutely believe so. Having lived that for most of my life, I know every time I come in contact with love, I have been transformed. Whether it was being married to Linda, it changed me. Becoming a follower of Jesus, it changed me. You know, connecting with people who are sharing their deepest struggles and other kinds of things in Bible study and teaching, in a session in my office, there is a kind of welcoming, trust, love, open door that makes people feel welcome. And Jesus says when we welcome someone in his name, it's like welcoming God to the table. In the book of Hebrews, you know, you should welcome everyone, it says, because by doing so, some of you have entertained angels unbeknownst to you. Now, we think of angels as glowing, you know, diaphanous, floating beings with lovely wings. By the way, that's not the biblical image of angels. They're scary because every time they show up, they have to say, "Don't be afraid." Don't be afraid. I'm not about to smite you or anything. Don't be afraid. But the word angel, the word we translate as angel, really means messenger. So people who show up here, even for the very first time, may bring a message to us we need to hear, may bring us a way of seeing the world in a different way. When someone shows up at your doorstep, you don't know what they're bringing. And Jesus says when we welcome one another in his name, it's like welcoming him. And when you welcome him, you welcome the same God that sent him into the world. And I don't know about you, but I'd kind of like to be welcoming to God. It is God's world after all. And I want to be sure God knows that God has space not only in our world, but in my life. And that's yet another reason why we come and hang out in this space. We come in here to welcome God into our hearts, into our lives. We come to welcome one another. We come to try to make the world a more welcoming place. You know that if you've read or watched or listened to the news, read, any of those kinds of things, it's very easy to become, probably distracted is not a strong enough word. You begin to wonder if we live in a world where there's any space for anybody else. The only space seems to be for people who look like or talk like or come from the same place as us. That's not a Jesus measure. That might be a cultural measure, that might be a small group measure, but from God's perspective, God's measure is everybody. Everybody has welcome. And when you welcome everybody, those everybody's know God's presence because you've welcomed God in secret, unbelievable ways that Walter from Greenbrier County, this Walter too, I'm sure, in ways he doesn't know. He may think after we left that we helped him. He may think that we did, and we certainly built a beautiful platform that is very safe. His house may long be gone before the platform is gone. I mean, that is how strong that platform was made. And he may think that we did everything for him. But his kind words, by the last day, when Evie had to leave on Thursday, the last afternoon she left, she said, "Can I be the one that goes and says goodbye to Walter?" Because she was leaving a little early and she wouldn't get to see him on Friday. And that's how welcoming Walter had been to her. And she wanted to feel that sense of connection and let him know that she was headed out for another camp. that kind of power. You don't realize what it's like if you've never felt unwelcome in places. And if you haven't, I'm really glad. But for many of us, there have been places in our lives that for one reason or another, we didn't think there was a spot that was for us. God always has a spot for you and for me in this world. And part of our job, our work, our gig, no matter what you do in your private life, no matter what job you have, is to find ways to make sure other people feel seen and welcomed into this beautiful world that we're a part of. Everybody can be pretty good about drawing lines and making somebody feel like an outsider. But what would happen if we recognized, like Jesus talked to us about in Matthew 10, verses 40 through 42, if we made it a world without lines, where there was no dividing line. Not a lot of, if you know anything about demographics, and I follow this guy who only does demographics about the church, you know that the modern church is in decline. There are fewer and fewer people that come. And I suspect for a lot of those churches it's because they weren't very good at making people feel like there was a place for them there. They were pretty good about telling you who didn't have a place here. But they weren't so good about saying there aren't very many of those. In fact, there aren't any of those that don't have a place here. Everybody, even the United Methodist Church, it took until the last couple of years to wake up that everybody is welcome in the church. You just hope everybody will learn that lesson. If everybody who encounters you encounters love, it will change the world. They will feel welcome. They will know there's a space. And if everyone who encounters me knows that they are seen, it won't matter that I happen to be a pastor, or that some people every once in a while say, well, James, you were paid to love people. You have to be pretty bad for you to have to slip over some cash. If I walk up to you one Sunday and say, I want to love you, but, how about $5,000? Then it's time for me to quit this gig. I need to be loving people completely apart from being paid to be the pastor of this church. And so do you. As people of faith, I charge you and myself, wherever you go, whoever you are, whatever you do, love and make others feel welcome. It is, in today's world, almost impossible work. There will be some people that rub you so wrong. Ugh. But if you made them feel welcome, if you made them feel loved, might change the way that they feel towards you. And even if it doesn't, you're doing what God asks. Perhaps not asks, commands. We create welcoming spaces here. There's a welcome center in the corner where you can sign in. There is coffee talk after this where people can come and welcome each other, greet each other, get to know each other. Periodically, we have baptisms. Periodically, we all are reminded of our baptismal vows. And in so doing, we practice the same thing God's doing for you before you ever got here. Guess what? You're welcome. Whether you're playing the clarinet for us, whether you're here to be part of a baptism or friends of our trustees chair, or this is your first time here, one of our graduates, several of our graduates, I'm surrounded by graduates on all sides. Wherever you are, whoever you are, there's a place for you. And that's what Doolin Church is about. So be Doolin Church this week. Not just in this space, but out in the world where people need to know they're loved and welcome. Code word, give everyone a cup of cold water. Everyone a cup of cold water, because it makes all the difference. Let us enter into a moment of prayer together, a prayer of confession.